Okay, so we kind of went through the questions in order. So we thought about what are the things that make somebody recognizable as a master. So consistent dedication over time, advanced enough to know that there is stuff they don't know, that there's more. Lots of practice, that goes to that 10,000 hour thing. We talked about technical competence. One of the things we debated for a bit was in the broad range of mastery, does it include the ability to teach? And we thought about people we know who are clearly masters at their skill, but cannot teach. And so it was an interesting question for us, but we said teaching is not part of mastery. Teaching is something you can master, but not that it is part of mastery generally. We talked about the need, or the thing that we would see in a master is somebody who understands their discipline well enough that they know when they can break the rules. They can actually go outside the bounds of the established norms of their area of expertise. That they can improvise, and that they can actually extend the discipline, if you will. So we talked about, the example was a flute player who starts getting different sounds out of a flute than you would expect, but they can only, it's different between a novice who can't get the sound they want and the master who's deliberately pushing the bounds. And we talked about a master as somebody who, they may not be able to articulate it, but they can recognize patterns that the normal eye will not see. So if you think about somebody who's really good at understanding manufacturing, they can walk through a plant, and in the walkthrough, they'll see half a dozen things that nobody else sees, just because they have seen enough that they can recognize it. We talked about the ability to self-evaluate their own practice as something that's a mark of a master, and that self-assessment correction. As we went on to talk about the TWI Master, I think that a lot of it wound up in that ability to adapt to the current situation. So being able to apply it in a really wide range of situations, to read the environment, to pick the right tool at the time. We talked about somebody being unflappable and having enough reference experiences that they can say, oh yeah, I've seen that situation before, and it's just a natural pattern to respond. We talked about a master in TWI as somebody who's got a really innate respect for the skills and the capabilities, the mastery of the people you're training in their area. So if you're in an insurance company, it's the people who are doing the work that you have that respect for. And that would be a mark of a TWI master. Caring, the ability to learn the language of the people who are being trained fast enough that you can use it, that you don't just say, or whatever you call it, that you've actually got to the point that you actually know the right word and can use it for them. I'm going to skip number 3 because we didn't have anything else that we wanted to add. In terms of top management support, we talked about them modeling the behavior. So if you're teaching GAR, it'd be really nice to have your top management using that, and holding people to account to use it. Saying, if you haven't, have you actually used the model before you come and ask me how to solve the problem? humility to humility of the top management to defer to the master, which is an interesting one, and backs up their words with the resource commitment so things don't get forever rescheduled and that sort of thing. And the last, just one last thing to add into number 5, we already mentioned the accountability, but also the acceptance by top management that even the master will make mistakes, that mistakes are a possibility, that they're normal, that they will be part of the whole process.
Hugh,
So,
thank you very much. Any questions?
Did I miss anything? Okay.
Can I make a comment? I'm really excited about everything that you said. I really enjoyed that. But the one thing that stuck with me is this idea that knowing when it's okay to break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one thing that, of course, you all know the core thing that TWIs follow the method, follow the manual, and you hear me saying that endlessly, right? And yet the mastery is really understanding the method deep enough to say, okay, here's where there's an exception to that, or here's where, because it's just a pattern, it's an ideal.
Yeah.
And really, the real proper use of the method is to adapt it to the situation at hand. But I can't break the rules unless I know the rules.
Yeah, and so it's, you got to have the, if we talked about it at the table, that if you have enough mastery to use the models as presented, that you've got that nailed, then, and you understand why it's where it is, then you can start to build on it. You can add to the lexicon of TWI and still have it consistent. So.
I have a question. A quick one. You're talking to me. Unflappable made me think of Japanese Buddha, Japanese masters, and I didn't think about that until just now when we were discussing it, which is interesting because that's a lot where TWI tends to come from. And why unflappable? Because then you mentioned later it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's okay to make mistakes, then you're going to be not unflappable.
You can make mistakes unflappably.
Yeah. If you make a mistake, you can roll with it, you can flow with it, and
Is that what that means? That unflappable, you don't show that, oh, I plow stuff?
yeah,
What?
I mean,
Yeah, unflappable. I take unflappable is I've made a mistake, but that's part of my learning and keep going.
Well, I think
Okay,
that,
then I would agree with
but
that.
I also think that the conversation at our table said it's more about that when something goes really awry in the course of the session, you don't kind of go, oh God, I have no idea what to do, It's just, oh, okay, what do I do here? How do I respond?
Okay.
Does that capture what we?
Having been through enough cycles of it to know that you don't necessarily have the answer to every situation, but you've been through it enough to know, well, let's talk about that, and not, I don't know the answer, it's not in my manual,